Hey everybody, welcome back to the lemonade stand, which is what I'm calling my garage because my C6 Z06 keeps handing me lemons. And we're going to try to turn my blown LS7 into sweet, sweet lemonade. We determined last time that I dropped an exhaust valve when I was driving the car on the racetrack, but the damage didn't look quite as bad as I was expecting. So today we're going to continue the teardown because this motor is going to have to come out of the car. And the big question that's been on my mind lately is, what's my plan for the motor? And part of that plan really depends on whether the block is cracked. Let's get started, and along the way we'll talk about some options. And oh man, there are a lot of options out there. It's really hard to decide what to do. First though, I want to get these wheels off because apparently it's bad for the suspension to droop with the wheels on for a long period of time. Sounds like an old wives' tale, but why risk it? Last time I stopped working when I got the cylinder head off and we didn't really get a look at the block. All I really needed to do was remove the head gasket. It was pointed out that the most likely reason for having coolant in my cylinder was due to a cracked block, so that's what I was expecting to find. And sure enough, we've got an obvious crack in the block and a less obvious one that may be hard to see on camera. The good news is it seems likely that my block can be welded and re-sleeved, but I don't yet know how much that would cost or how long it would take. While I get to work removing accessories from the front of the engine, let's talk about my options. Now the simplest approach would be a crate engine. It comes fully built, brand new, and ready to install in the car. Maybe the wisest choice in this category would be a 6.2 liter LS3 that makes 430 horsepower and can be had brand new for about $6,000. But let's be honest, a huge part of the identity and the magic and why I fell in love with the C6 Z06 is that big 427 cubic inch LS7. And I don't think I could bring myself to do a downgrade, even if that would be the smartest path in terms of budget and reliability. And lucky for me, even though GM has discontinued the LS7, Summit Racing still has a few leftover crate motors for more than triple the cost of an LS3. And let's be honest, even with a brand new LS7, it's probably smart to spend a few thousand more to get the heads fixed. But if we're spending over $20,000 on a new 7-liter motor, why not dig a little deeper and buy K-Tech's Track Attack 427, making 680 horsepower for just under $45,000. I looked at the build sheet and it doesn't appear that this engine uses a single GM part. The block, heads, pistons, crank, everything is aftermarket, and I suspect it's the best of the best. It's absolutely what I would do if money were no object. But money is an object. And since I feel like I have to have a 7-liter motor, I don't think the crate engine route is for me. Nicole! Just gonna hold this in place. Okay, got it? You didn't see where that screw went, did you? Damn it. Aha. Okay, before we talk about option number 2, I want to say that this was my worst day in the garage in a long time. In theory, getting the accessories off the front of the motor shouldn't be that hard, especially since I've done it before on other cars, but for some reason it felt like the car wanted to fight me every step of the way. And what makes it worse is that there's nothing glamorous going on. You look in the engine bay at the end of the day and it doesn't really look that much different from when you started. Days like this are why a lot of people choose to pay a shop to work on their cars, and frankly, I don't blame them. But I'm a firm believer that suffering builds character, so I kept going. Option number 2 is where we could try to save some money, and that's by going to Facebook Marketplace. Because believe it or not, there are quite a few LS7s up for sale for a fraction of what a new one costs. In fact, there are a couple available within a reasonable drive, and depending on what you buy, you might get yourself a fantastic deal, which I have to say is very tempting. But my recent run-in with a scam on the AP Racing brakes I bought has me a little wary of buying used parts on the internet. There are some other issues as well. Some of the motors you find for sale have been modded, and it's unlikely that they've been modded in the same way you would choose if you were starting fresh. And while a motor may claim to be stock and low miles, it's hard for someone like me to verify that. Not to mention, you still need to spend money on heads and whatever other mods you might plan to do. Because let's be honest, if I'm starting with a motor on an engine stand, the whole while I'm in there slippery slope is going to be very hard to resist. So while a used motor appeals to me more than a crate motor, and I'm not going to rule it out just yet, I don't think that's what I'm going to do. There's an old saying that goes like this: good, fast, cheap. You can only pick 2. And that's kind of the conundrum, because I want an LS7 that's reliable, powerful, and affordable. I'm just not sure that combination even exists. But if we're going to talk pie in the sky, I'll tell you what my ideal build would be. We'll call it option number 3. I came across a Motor Trend article about an LS7 that's been de-stroked, meaning it uses a different crank and rod so the pistons don't travel as far, and as a result of that, plus a beefy valve train, it's capable of revving to 8,000 RPM and making over 600 horsepower. Since I found that article, I've probably gone back and read it 5 times, and I guess that tells you how exciting that idea is to me. Since my car is being built for road course work and specifically to beat up on 911 GT3s, I just love the idea of an LS7 that can rev to the moon. I'll put a link to the article in the comments. And you know, it's not exactly a new idea. I don't know much about NASCAR, but I do know that those motors are pushrod V8s that can live all day at 9,000 RPM. In fact, on the day I blew Goldie's motor, I got to drive my buddy's retired Mike Skinner NASCAR truck, complete with a TRD racing motor on track, and let me tell you, that thing is a monster. If you happen to catch any of this year's 24 Hours of Le Mans, one of the biggest stories was the Garage 56 Camaro that was setting faster lap times than the entire GTE field with its iron block pushrod V8.
You know you want to come out, you Oh my God. Oh. There has to be a better way.
Yeah, that power steering pump was a real chore to get out. I don't think you'd believe me if I told you how long I wrestled with that thing. But as I was saying, my absolute dream would be to get my block fixed and rebuild it in my garage to turn it into a 600 horsepower motor that I can rev to 8,000 RPM as many times as I want to.
Oops.
The problem is, I don't know if it's realistic from a cost perspective, let alone as a build I'm capable of tackling in my garage. So I'll try to find a way to make it happen. I just don't know if it's in the cards. And hey, I remembered to bring a jack stand under the car with me. I mean, I didn't really put it under anything, but just having it down there made me feel better, like when they put a goat in a stall with a nervous horse. And hey, we're just in time to see the driver's side cylinder head come off. I've been getting a lot of compliments on my mechanical abilities. It's time to see just how far I've come.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Remember how I just said maybe I shouldn't be tackling an entire short block rebuild in my garage? By the way, the driver's side cylinder head looks good, and so does the block on that side, so it really seems like the damage was limited to the one cylinder where I dropped an exhaust valve. I was getting so frustrated by the end of the day, I just didn't have any patience left. And that's dangerous because you can end up making an expensive mistake when you start rushing and cutting corners. Luckily, I don't think I damaged anything, but the point still stands. Sometimes you just need to walk away and come back later. And I think part of why I wasn't enjoying myself in the garage is literally because I've been so distracted by this question of what I should do with this motor. Probably the most realistic option, if I can't make my de-stroked dream come true, is option number 4, where I buy an off-the-shelf short block, off-the-shelf aftermarket heads. That should be pretty straightforward to install, and I won't have to worry about lead times. It'll be expensive, but I'll end up with something really reliable, and I think this is a case where cutting corners is just way too risky. And if I keep my original motor, that's an opportunity to take my time, get the block fixed, and build it myself, maybe for a future project. So nothing is set in stone just yet, but I'm going to have to decide soon. I'd really appreciate hearing any feedback you have in the comments. This project is turning out to be way more than I anticipated, and I see that as a good thing. Because I think these unexpected paths that seem to appear out of nowhere, they lead us to the most interesting destinations. And at the very end of the day, when I was done working and cleaning up my tools, I was actually feeling pretty good about things. Thanks for coming along for the ride. We'll see you next time.
What are you doing with the camera?
Filming.